Welcome to The Void, everyone. We're here with Mike Portnoy. Was out with Shattered Fortress, revisiting an iconic album. How has it felt so far? What's the vibe?
Well, I didn't know if I'd ever be playing this music again. It was never part of my plan. It was never my intention when I left Dream Theater 7 years ago. But it's been great. I mean, it's actually been a good experience. You know, I look into the crowd every night and I see people smiling. I see grown men crying. So yeah, I guess we're doing our job. When you see grown men crying, you know you're doing all right.
Well, people do it often with your music, I think. Like, that's a common thing. Do you go back to a point in time when you're sort of playing those songs, or?
Well, all this music was written in the 90s and the 2000s, so it's definitely a trip down memory lane. It's definitely like I feel nostalgic doing it.
You're a very prolific person. Like, you've probably produced more hours of music than any other drummer. Like, honestly, that's probably true, like, in the grand scheme of things.
Well, not if you count Dave Grohl as a drummer. If you're counting Dave Grohl as a drummer, he's probably got me beat. But I'm definitely up there. I mean, I think I've done almost 100 albums at this point.
Like, I guess music in some ways is sort of a reach toward immortality in a lot of ways, because it will live forever and all that sort of stuff. And you sort of had a few big like moments of mortality, like you lost your mother quite young, and then the whole addiction thing was proceeding towards it would have been an ugly outcome had you not sort of, you know, put the brakes on and change that. Did your sort of early experiences of mortality inform your drive to produce like a ton of music?
Probably. I think, like you mentioned, my mom passing away, she died in a plane crash when I was 17, so it was completely unexpected, you know, there one moment and gone the next. And I think when you go through an experience like that when you're 17 years old, I think you realize that every moment is precious and you can't take life for granted. And I always live by carpe diem. I live by that motto, but it's one thing to live each day like it's your last day, but I think it's also important to remember to live each day like it's someone you love's last day. You know, you never know when somebody you love is not going to be with you. So how that applies to what I do, I think I've learned at an early age to just live it up and do everything I can and take advantage. And I didn't want to spend my whole life being in one band. I wanted to, you know, be in all these different bands, doing all these different kinds of music. And, you know, I love everything from every different style of rock and metal and music. I didn't want to just do what Dream Theater did. I wanted to do all these other things too.
Is that one of the big driving forces? Because obviously you spent 25 years of your life in that band. Like, that's a pretty profound commitment. Like, that year, right? Like, the year with Avenged and that year you left and stuff. I mean, people have written about it endlessly, but what was your actual experience of it in the eye of the storm? Like, looking back, you know, it was a while back there, but obviously that's a big turning point in your career. Like,
yeah, I mean, if I have to, like you say, go back to that point and look at it in the eye of the storm, I could tell you I was on tour with Avenged Sevenfold. It was summer of 2010, and I'm already 25 years into my relationship with Dream Theater, and at that point I was just kind of burnt on the whole never-ending cycle with the same guys playing the same venues every 2 years, and I just needed to shake it up. And I was out on tour with Avenged Sevenfold and having a great time, and touring with Disturbed and Stone Sour and Hell Yeah and Hailstorm. I mean, it was a great tour, and I was like, man, I'm having a fun time. I'm having a great time. I need to do other things. I'm enjoying this, and I haven't felt this excitement in a long time. And whether or not I was going to stay with Avenged or not, or just go off and do all these other new things that I've gone off to do, it wasn't the point. I didn't know what the future held. I just knew that if I didn't make a change, I would forever regret it. There's that expression, it's better to regret something you have done than something you haven't. And that's where I was at. I was like, I didn't want to like go back to Dream Theater and start work on the next record and then just that endless cycle continue for another 25 years.
And never end.
And I would have just always wondered, well, what could I have done if I had just followed my heart? So I decided to follow my heart, wherever that may take me. I didn't necessarily think I was going to stay with Avenged Sevenfold. I knew that that was just a temporary thing, but I knew I needed something else.
Well, it's cool that you've made such a transition and people have followed you so well. Like, you know, like I think one of the things that I think is really interesting about you as a musician is you have become like in the way that Dream Theater is a boldface name, in the way that Avenged Sevenfold of a newer era is a boldface name, what's actually happened with you with all these projects is like you're the boldface name. And is that freeing that people are actually following you more than the project often, or?
I think it's what made that leap of faith easier to swallow. I think if I was just some little unknown drummer, I don't think it would be as easy to leave, you know, the security of a 25-year band. The fact that, you know, I'm not saying this to brag, it's just a mere fact. The fact is that, like, I had more, you know, social media followers than anybody else in the band, and still to this day do. It made it easier to follow my heart. I knew that I had the support of a solid fan base that would pretty much allow me to be able to do all these other things and follow my heart. And thank God for that. You know, I don't know if I would have had the balls to do it if I didn't have already this great support system of this great fan base.
Well, it's all that matters now. The interesting thing with the collapse of the industry is that that's all that matters. Like, having your people and your tribe and your community is the thing. It's
sad because I see record companies or concert promoters often expecting me to do all the work because I have 1.5 million people on my.
You know more people than they do.
Well, they figure I'm just going to put the concerts on my website, or I'm going to put the album release on my website, and then they don't have to do the work. And it's like, well, no, you're the promoter. It's your job to promote.
Okay, question for you. Okay, so like your kind of drumming, obviously I don't think there's ever been an iconic heavy metal band with a terrible drummer. Okay, there might be one, but like, but not naming any names. I'm just saying that, like, I'm not going to say anything, but okay.
He's my hero. I know exactly what you're talking about, and he's one of my heroes. I'll defend him to the end.
What does Mark? What I'm just giving you shit, Lars, because everyone does. It's a universal thing.
He's one of my heroes. I'll defend him to the end. I'll tell you what. You don't have to be a great drummer to be the most important guy in the band, and that's what I learned from him. It's like, look, first of all, I do love his drumming.
I'm teasing you, Lars.
No, but everybody teases him, so I get it. But I'm probably going to contradict whatever your next question was. But as far as I'm concerned, you don't have to be a great drummer to be somebody that's important. Some of my heroes are guys like Lars or Criss, who takes the heat for a lot of stuff, or Ringo Starr, who takes the heat. These guys are my heroes, you know?
People take the piss out of them, but maybe it's because they're jealous of how fucking huge they are without being like majorly technical dudes.
Those guys were all very important to their bands. Lars, obviously, he was the leader of the band, and he showed me those leadership qualities. But Ringo and Criss, those guys were so important to the band's chemistry. You know, they were important personalities in those bands.
Yeah. It is about the personalities, really.
Absolutely.
I'll admit, I saw Guns N' Roses with Bumblefoot actually in that period, and it's not the same. It's, you know, there's alchemy that happens there. Question for you. So you say that Lars taught you leadership qualities. What are the leadership qualities? What are the core leadership qualities to being a leading drummer?
Well, to me, it's not about the drumming. I mean, I guess I did make my name out of my drumming and have the big drum sets and the, you know, doing all these crazy odd time signatures. So, yeah, I mean, I guess drumming was very important to what made me popular. But to me, my attributes and the importance of my role in Dream Theater always went way beyond the drumming. It was like what I was saying about Lars. It was, you know, with Dream Theater, I was writing the set lists and I was doing the fan clubs and the merchandise and you know, directing the videos and producing the albums and
directed the videos.
Yeah.
So it's not the most important one, just
yeah, but that one interested you.
But that's amazing. Well, it's interesting, like, these kind of, yeah, I guess, like, once upon a time there's drummer jokes and there's all this kind of, kind of thing.
I hear them all the time, of course.
But then, like, some of the smartest people I've ever met are drummers and lyricists as well. Like people like Thomas Harker. Yeah, Harker? Yeah.
Or Neil Peart with Rush, and then you have all the drummers that have gone on to great solo careers, people like Phil Collins or Don Henley or whatever. So yeah, fuck you guys, we could do it too.
Well, I don't know. It's cool that the rhythm section. I mean, okay, that's a question. When you're writing lyrics and writing drums, how does that work? And also, I had a question from the dudes, which is, do you start complex and simplify, or do you start simple and then build on when you're writing a song?
Well, those are two different questions. The first question about lyrics and drumming, to me, they're completely different entities, and they happen at different points of the creative process. Always with all of my bands, the music comes first. So usually if I'm writing lyrics, it's not till after the music has been written, and then I'll write lyrics. And usually I write the melodies first. So here's the process. Music first, but within the music first, drumming is not first for me. I'm usually sitting in front of the drums with a chalkboard, writing out the arrangements and trying to map everything out and direct everything. And I'll have a lot of opinions on the melodies or the progressions or the key changes, things like that, the arrangements. So first and foremost with the music, that's my focus. Then comes the drums. Then once the song is done, then it comes the lyric process. And usually before the lyrics, I'll think of melodies. So I'll hum along. I'll do a demo where da 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 ba da da ra 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 ra, and then I'll write lyrics to that. So
you've had your hands pretty deep in the belly of the beast of all your bands.
Yeah, pretty much all of my full-time bands. Yeah. I mean, obviously there's been situations like Avenged Sevenfold or Twisted Sister or whatever where I just came in and helped out, but Dream Theater, Winery Dogs, Sons of Apollo, Flying Colors, Transatlantic, in all those cases, I'm a co-writer.
Is that weird leaving the name behind? I mean, your dad came up with the name, right?
Yeah.
Is it hard to kind of walk away, or having that name that you have built up make it less hard?
It's hard. I mean, I don't want to say, if I say it is, then it's going to end up like a blabbermouth headline, like I'm whining or crying about it. Look, I'm at peace with it. I'm fine with it. Things happen the way they happened, but whatever. Yeah, I mean, it is, and I hate to use this analogy, but it's the truth, and as much as I get shit for saying it, it's the truth. It's like seeing your ex-wife with a new husband. I mean, that's the truth. That's the way it is, and then you see them living in a house with new kids and a new house and everything, and they're still using your name. I don't know. It's
in your songs.
Yeah. But it is what it is.
Yeah, and you're here now, and you've got built a whole new musical world. Mm-hmm. So Derek, because you guys have been a big uniting force in this whole experience. When did you? Okay, because he came into the band to Dream Theater 10 years after you did.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what was it? Why is this relationship endured?
Well, Derek was with us in the 90s, and he was always kind of like my rock and roll brother. All the other guys in Dream Theater, as much as I love them, they're always kind of like prog nerds.
I knew that was coming.
And Derek came in, and Derek loved Van Halen and Ozzy and Sabbath and Kiss, and that's what he grew up with.
That's cool.
None of the Dream Theater guys really kind of grew up with that stuff, but I did, and Derek did. So he was kind of always my rock and roll buddy, and we had this nickname, the Del Fuvio Brothers, because we were just sarcasm and shit stirring and making fun of people, mocking people. So he and I just really clicked on that level. For whatever reason, we had to let him go towards the end of the decade.
What happened there?
The Dream Theater was just going through a very, very tough period at that period, and in order to survive, we needed to make a bunch of changes, and letting Derek go was one of them. But I never stopped loving him, and he remained a friend, and we always stayed in touch through all the years that he wasn't in the band. And then once I left Dream Theater, it was inevitable that we would come back together and do something. So here we are with Sons of Apollo. It's
a really cool record. It's it's fun. It's got a rock and roll. It's interesting you say that you're rock and roll dudes, because obviously it's got proggy elements, but it's fucking rock and roll.
It's definitely got way more balls and personality Yeah, and I know once you see this band on tour, this band on stage is going to be ridiculous. Between Bumblefoot and Billy Sheehan and Jeff, who's an amazing front man, and you know it's going to have real personality on stage. It's going to be like a 5-ring circus. And when you see a lot of
A 5-ring circus.
you see a lot of prog bands, and it's like watching paint dry. You know, it's like a science experiment. This band is not going to be that way. This band is going to be about entertainment.
A lot of grown men gently weeping. That's generally the vibe, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You've seen a lot of men cry in your time, haven't you?
I think with Sons of Apollo, we don't want grown men weeping. We want
Women taking their shirts off.
Exactly. You took the words out of my mouth. Exactly.
I'm glad you have the same attitude.
Yeah.
That's what rock and roll should do, right?
Exactly.
I actually saw, and look, I'm not going to hate on Kiss because I feel like you had to have gotten into Kiss at a certain point, and I think I'm too young to have gotten into Kiss the way people. Yeah, I feel like you had to have gotten into them then, because I saw them live the same week I saw Ozzy Osbourne with fucking Mike Portnoy on drums and Zakk Wylde on guitar, and I had to leave Kiss. Yeah, I had to leave. Yeah. I had to leave Kiss because like, I'm sorry, but fucking. They were like going cheer for me, and I saw fucking that. Like I saw Ozzy with those guys, and people were actually taking their tops off.
Well, you had to have been there.
saying.
You had to have been there in the 70s. When I saw Kiss in 1977, Madison Square Garden, it was life-altering. It was the first time I went to a concert and smelled pot smoke everywhere. And then they get on stage, and they're just larger than life, and shit's blowing up everywhere. And, you know, I was like 10 years old, and that, you know, nobody was doing shit like that then. It was like the Beatles for heavy metal kids. You know.
I think I need to have that experience, because if you are first confronted with Gene Simmons, then I can't possibly understand the experience of the whole thing. Like, yeah. So you're going to bring this band out here?
Sons of Apollo. Yeah, I hope so. I mean,
you should.
Yeah, I hope so. I know our manager is planning on it. It's in the plans, so hopefully it'll happen.
What's been the most, you've obviously worked with a lot of different bands, what's been the most unique element of walking into this? Are they all rock and roll people in a way that your other bands were more prog-based? Or
They're all different. All the bands I do with Neil Morse are still very prog and very proper, and that's cool too. I mean, I love good music that, you know, that you could sit and quietly watch. You know, there's a place for that as well. But then, you know, with Avenged, it was just craziness and young kids and awesome.
Yeah.
And then I play with Twisted Sister, which is much older people, you know, from, you know, the 70s and 80s era. So you kind of have to wear different hats for all these different bands. Then I do Metal Allegiance. One of my favorite things is Metal Allegiance, because that's me playing with all my metal buddies.
you bro down.
That's me with the guys from Megadeth and Anthrax and Pantera and Slayer and Sepultura and Exodus and Testament. Those are all my metal buddies.
Thrashiest group of people in the world.
It's like what an all-star band to play with, and so I have that's
your baddest. That's your.
to me, that's probably the most fun gig I have in terms of just being able to be metal and have fun.
Well, it's good to be metal and have fun.
Yeah.
With Avenged, right? Okay, so I was like, we're on a festival, and I was talking to one of their roadies, and he's like, it really spins me out how these guys have had 0.01% of young bands get to experience in terms of the level of success. They're touring on a level that 99% of their peers don't ever get to see. What do you think they did differently that made them that? Like a Boldface name, the way you have been a part of a lot of Boldface names, because it's mysterious.
I don't know
the way things work. I don't know.
I don't know the answer to that. Why Avenged and why not 99 other bands? Well, I think they click. They've got personality. For some reason, they reach a young audience, and they're
Girls.
They reach a lot of girls, and their fans are really dedicated and hardcore. They all have the death bat tattoos. Hey, even I got one. Me and Zachy got matching ones. But I don't know. I think, you know, they're kind of this generation's Metallica or Guns N' Roses. I think they kind of mix them. They have the metal of Metallica, but they have the sleaziness of like Guns N' Roses or Motley Crue or whatever. So they're just kind of like that combination for this generation. But yeah, I mean, they went from playing, you know, the side stage on the Warped Tour to 200 people to now like headlining Download every year. And yeah, it's amazing.
What are the psychological, emotional, and physical qualities that a drummer needs to have?
It's a lot of endurance. It's a very physical instrument. Like I told you off camera before, I've had physical injuries, or like dislocating my wrist or hurting my back, or, for me, it's a very physical instrument. I'm up and down and moving around and jumping, so it could be exhausting. You kind of have to stay in shape, which I don't. You have to eat well, which I don't. You have to take care of yourself, which I don't. So I could drop dead at any moment.
Okay, so I do a thing at the end, and I know I have to finish soon.
He's giving you
Yeah. What are 5 songs that have changed your life? Yeah. No, either. 5 songs that are really like fucking resonant to you. They can be songs you've written or songs that you've listened to. You've made what have you made, 100 albums? I guess you could probably pick ones you've made.
Well, the one of mine that's changed my life was Pull Me Under, because Dream Theater was floating in obscurity for the first 7 years of the band, and then that song hit, and then suddenly it blew the doors open, and
Shit got real.
It got me. Everything that I've done since then is because of that moment, that song. It opened up every door I've walked through since. So that would be obviously one answer. Well, the Beatles, so I'd have to pick a Beatles song.
Helter Skelter.
I was born in '67, and Sgt. Pepper came out 6 weeks after I was born, so I'd have to pick a song off that album, A Day in the Life, just because it's kind of significant with
your life.
And also, I'd have to pick a Who song, because Keith Moon was always one of my biggest heroes ever. So, I don't know. My generation, seeing him like destroy his drum kit on the Smothers Brothers show in '67, also when I was born. I mean, that was like, I saw that and I was like, I want to do that. I want to be a fucking crazy drummer.
That's really funny, because Buzz from the Melbourne said last week, he's like, how can you ever be as an extreme as the Who fucking trashing all their equipment?
Imagine seeing that for the first time. I mean, now you're used to seeing people trash their instruments, but imagine like seeing that for the first time. All right, 2 more before he kicks us off. I'd have to pick something off the first Metallica album, Kill 'Em All, because, I mean, when that came out, it just changed everything.
Look, everyone in that band fucking brought it. Like, let's be real. I can tease Lars all I want, but it's like they started 100 bands.
Cliff is one of my heroes. He's one of my all-time bass heroes. So, but when Kill 'Em All came out, nothing had been that fast and that heavy and that tight ever. You had Heavy, like Motorhead, but Motorhead was more loose and sloppy, whereas Metallica was super heavy and tight. So let's say the Four Horsemen.
Yeah.
Any song off the first album.
It's like classical heavy metal.
Yeah, it is now. That's classic rock now.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Let's think about it.
And then I'm going to just pick something that's not metal. I'll go with something off of Radiohead's OK Computer, because to me that's like one of the most perfect albums ever made. But it's got 3 of the greatest songs ever on that one album. You got Paranoid Android, Exit Music from a Film, and Karma Police. All 3 of those are perfect songs. How do you pick one of them? Exit Music from a Film. I'll go with that, just because it's like it just moves me every time.
See, I like this, because I can now make a playlist out of this, and people can like get into your musical brain, like as a thing. That's a really cool cross section of music. And
I'm missing Bowie too, man.
You need a little Bowie.
Space Oddity, or Rock and Roll Suicide, or Life on Mars. Oh man, I could just do this.
We're just saying. By the way, Mike just told me that Quentin Tarantino's next film is about the '60s and '70s and rock and roll.
Well, 1969 specifically. I can't wait. I've never seeing Tarantino do the '60s is going to be amazing. I can't wait.
Totally. Well, Mike, thank you for your time. Have a great show tonight, and may the force be with you. This is The Void.